Let's show it. Here it is. Here it is in The Intercept. How a flurry of suspicious phone calls set investigators on Rick Snyder's trail. Former Michigan Governor Rick Snyder knew about a Legionnaire's disease outbreak in Flint as early as October 2014, when there was still a significant amount of time to save lives, according to investigators looking into the Flint. This is your reporting. Snyder, as well as former Michigan Health Department Director Nick Lyon and Snyder's top advisor Richard Baird, will be charged by the Michigan Attorney General over their roles in the Flint water crisis. Snyder is charged with willfully neglecting his mandatory legal duties under the Michigan Constitution and the Emergency Management Act, thereby failing to protect the health and safety of Flint's residents. Snyder was charged with 2 counts of willful neglect of duty, a misdemeanor. The Michigan Penal Code lists a maximum penalty for willful neglect as a year in prison or a fine of $1,000. Now, what happened, people don't know, is that the original team that were investigating, they got fired, right?
By a Democratic Attorney General, by the way.
Oh, yes. Okay. So tell us about that evolution in the investigation.
Yeah, so 2016, the investigation was announced. They hired a special prosecutor, kind of like a Mueller, but for Flint. But this actually was a legit investigation. Yeah. And that team investigated for 3 years. They charged 15 state of Michigan officials and city officials. Our reporting indicates that they had concluded there was evidence to charge Governor Snyder with misconduct in office, which is a felony, with neglect of duty, which is this misdemeanor. And by the time they were fired, they were about 75-80% of the way to charging with involuntary manslaughter. The reason they weren't there yet, this will be in additional reporting my partner Jen and I do, is Snyder and his lawyers were obstructing them. They weren't giving them emails, briefings, and key documents that the criminal investigation had requested. But that team was gunning for involuntary manslaughter against the governor. Gretchen Whitmer became governor. Dana Nessel became attorney general in 2019. She said that their investigation was flawed. She fired the whole team and started her new investigation. So 3 years of investigators, maybe if for whatever reason, if you want to fire the guy at the top, but don't fire the whole team. And she dropped all of the charges against 8 defendants, including 2 defendants that 2 judges had ruled must face trial, that there was enough evidence that the original team showed to make them face trial. So our reporting found the original investigation. They found the governor, his chief of staff, and the health director on the phone. I mean, just an avalanche of phone calls in October 2014. Why that period was important, that's when emails, phone calls were flying around the environmental department in Michigan, the health department in Michigan, about the Legionella outbreak in Flint. Legionella outbreak killed, the official state number, which is Rick Snyder proclaiming 12, but PBS and others have reported hundreds could have died from Legionella. I'm doing further reporting that indicates hospitals, on the orders of who knows, weren't even testing patients with pneumonia for Legionella.
No.
So bottom line, they found an avalanche of phone calls between the governor's chief of staff and the health director at the same exact time. Legionella, that was raising alarm bells throughout his administration. They also found a briefing addressed to the governor that mentioned Legionella. The governor went in front of Congress. He said, I didn't know about it till January 2016. This was October 2014. We've reported that. And essentially, we can't get the corporate media to report on it. Twitter is blocking us from basically getting it out there and sharing. This is the same governor that Joe Biden lovingly accepted his endorsement, put it up there so he could get, Republican votes. And it's truly outrageous because we showed that the original investigation had all this evidence, and the new attorney general just charged him with, one Flint resident said, the equivalent of a jaywalking ticket.
Yeah, I know, it's nuts. There's no, Are you shocked, Jordan, that people still don't know what really happened in Flint, and they still don't know that Barack Obama went in there and just ignored those people and left them in the lurch? He could have declared it a disaster area, which would have given them the money to fix the pipes, and it would have given everybody already poisoned. Those children are poisoned. It would have given them Medicare for all for the rest of their life. He didn't do any of that. In fact, he gaslit them. And people don't. The thing that gets me nuts is that people still don't know about that. Does that drive you nuts?
All of it drives me nuts, and the Obama part. And it's not just Obama. I mean, it's a Democratic Party also.
Yes.
I mean, for example, we just broke this story. I reached out to the House Oversight Committee because, I don't know, I think perjury is still a crime in America. The governor perjured himself in front of Congress. Our evidence indicates he knew way earlier about this outbreak. When Elijah Cummings was alive, he was trying to drag Snyder back because Elijah Cummings knew that he was lying. But the Republicans still control the Senate. Well, Biden's got the White House. The Democrats have the House, the Senate. They have the House Oversight Committee. They got the DOJ. And I reached out, hey, are you going to do anything about this? I reached out several times. I have the right email. They're not responding. Frankly, when Elijah Cummings died, I reached out to Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney. She's the oversight chair, a Democrat. They didn't respond. So, everybody, there's 25,000 things going on at once, COVID, the Capitol attacks, a whole lot, but you can walk and chew gum at the same time. I'm pretty sure not only is it the right thing to do to bring Snyder back in there, but it's good politics for them, and that's all they care about. But for some reason, they will not, the media seems to have a coordinated thing. I mean, Rachel Maddow covered the fact that he was charged without even mentioning that it was just found that there is much more than a misdemeanor here. So, I have the email right in front of me, the Detroit Free Press. I went to them first. I literally handed them these phone calls that we obtained, this briefing that we obtained, a lot of other information that we obtained. They responded to me, oh, it seems like you have some good work here, but we don't have the resources to invest on this at this time. He also told me, this editor, when I met him in a parking lot, because of COVID, we were sitting in our cars. I was sharing this information. Yeah, we kind of regret not doing more on Flint. But the Detroit Free Press, who's got 6 reporters on their investigative team, could not be bothered to break. Would be kind of be good for the Detroit Free Press, by the way.
Yeah. That
the governor, I don't care if he's a Republican, a Democrat, whatever. The governor of the state knew about a deadly water disease while it was making people sick and leading to people dying. And because he was up for re-election, because he then wanted to run for president, he, his chief of staff, his health director were thick as thieves covering it up. By the way, that's not my term, Jimmy. It's not my opinion. This is what investigators found.
Yes.
They used the term cover up. So, no, I'm not shocked. And frankly, I think part of it is because this did happen under Obama, and they don't want that to be revisited.
And the press, that's the thing. The press is corrupt. Like if you weren't put there, they won't even cover your coverage.
No. And honestly, I think at this point, I was talking to my partner, Jen, who, by the way, Jen has COVID.
Yes.
She's had it for 2 months. She sends me her thermometer every morning. She's one of these long haulers that literally has had it for 2 months. She's had a fever on and off. She's been working on this night and day with me while sick. And Twitter shut down her account from boosting ads because it's a political ad. I mean, it all ties back to what we were talking about at first. I understand that people want to protest politicians, but I've been saying for years, you have to start with protests in the media, because the media are why the politicians get away with keeping you poor while enriching banks. The media is why they get away with, literally this PPP money, Jimmy, was raided by oligarchs and plutocrats. PPP money meant for small businesses was raided by oligarchs, plutocrats, Democratic donors, Republican Party donors. The country doesn't even know about it because the media just keeps it quiet.
That's right.
The list goes on. So you should start with them. I'm not saying be violent, but make them uncomfortable, because at the end of the day, they are arms of the state. They keep talking about RT and these state actors. Like, are you kidding me? In a normal sense, thank God I didn't go to journalism school, Jimmy, but I did take journalism 101. In a normal sense, in a healthy media system that hasn't been hijacked by corporations, if you break evidence of a cover-up by government officials, it would be the leading story on the paper.
Right.
I also offer the Detroit Free Press, hey, throw one of your reporters' names on this in front of me. Like, take the first credit.
Right.
Because to me, first and foremost is just getting the truth out. Mm-hmm. It's so corrupt. And I'm going to write a book on it eventually. I have emails showing, like Mother Jones and other outlets, when I pitch them Flint stories, proving corruption. Is there a tie to Trump? Is there a connection to Trump?
That's it? That's all they cared about?
It's absolutely outrageous. And I think if people, honestly, Jimmy, the truth is, let's say even if you were successful with force the vote, let's say if AOC and them did it and then they got a floor vote, I'm not even convinced CNN or any of them would even cover it. I think it's that corrupt that I think even if it was a hashtag online, even if it got through and they actually did exercise politics and force the vote, I don't think they would cover it. Hell, Bernie Sanders, for a few days at the end of the year, was blocking the government resolution, the continuing government resolution, yes, to do that speech for the filibuster, speech for the $2,000 checks. They didn't even show that. So it's just
they didn't.
They are arms of the state, and this is why I got to tell you, people say, well, Jordan, why don't you get off YouTube? Why don't you just start your own outlet? Or why don't progressives come together, which I think they should, and start their own outlet? We could, let's say if an air balloon came down, a parachute came down, we had the funding from actual progressive sources. Well, Google still runs the world, folks.
That's right.
They could just deplatform whatever it is we start.
Look what they just did to Parler. They'll just take Apple could just get rid of us. Google could get rid of us. They'll just get rid of you. And that is the world we're living in. All right. So
I would just say quickly, Jimmy. Yeah, whatever. Like status quo gets hurt, you get hurt, but people are getting hurt. The people of Flint are hurt by this.
Of course.
The people of Standing Rock, when the media was burying that story, even though literally at its peak, you had 15 to 20,000 people there.
Yeah.
CNN sent one reporter to just report what the police were telling you. That was it.
Yep.
There was documentary filmmakers, myself.
Yes.
No mainstream media. Indigenous people are hurt. Black and brown people are hurt. Poor white people are hurt.
Yes.
Communities like Flint are hurt because the truth about the oppression and injustice against them does not get out. And B, they don't even know what's going on in their own communities because their local papers are corrupt. Their local websites are corrupt. And this is why it's not a sexy topic. You've talked about it. The Telecommunications Act of 1996 needs to be completely repealed. We need, frankly, an entire different communications mechanism in this country. And if Mark Zuckerberg once said, Facebook is like a government. Well, if it's like a government, it needs to be regulated as such. All of these platforms need to be regulated as such. And unfortunately, I do think at some point they will be coming for us, for you. They already are. And,
they already are. There's no doubt about it.
For people, we could disagree. Some people could disagree with some of my takes, your takes, whatever. That's fine. But what we shouldn't disagree on is actual journalism and alternative voices that are backing it up with facts. I've never really seen anybody. I've never seen you have to issue a correction. I did air
that blackface video of that I got caught on that. That was the one thing. Yeah, go ahead.
I tweeted out some poll numbers wrong a few times.
Yeah.
None of my reporting has been, it's one thing if people are consistently pushing out cockamamie conspiracy theories that are false and have no truth behind it.
That's right.
Then, okay, that's fine. But I'm a journalist. You're doing more journalism as a comedian than CNN or any of them doing. Frankly, TYT, who I wanted to go to TYT because I was inspired by Jenks' rants against the Democratic Party, against the Republican Party, against what we're talking about now. He was unhinged, but he also had the truth on his side. He also had, he was liberated at that point.
Yes.
We know some things have changed since then. But now even our independent, quote unquote, independent media, are saying, no, well, yeah, we'll try to get to Julian Assange being tortured and, being kept kidnapped, basically. There's no charges against him.
Right.
He's just being held and kidnapped. If he doesn't, she didn't charge with extradition to bring him over. But who's to say if he's kept in there in perpetuity, he's not going to try that. A man or a woman can only take so much. So I think, honestly, I don't know what the answer is, Jimmy, but it's very scary because actual journalism is being oppressed. Actual journalism is being hidden, and the media is in on it. And I think that if something's not done about this, if AOC and these people don't think it will eventually come for them, they got another thing coming.
Yeah, and they smear that's how propaganda works. Like when we started telling, you don't get smeared when you're doing bad journalism. You get smeared when you're doing good journalism. You get smeared when you're onto something in Flint. You get smeared when you're telling the truth about the gas attacks in Syria. You don't get smeared if you're going along with the CIA propaganda on the gas attacks in Syria. You get smeared when you tell the truth. And that's what happened to this show. And so that's exactly why we need to have protection, and especially for unpopular speech. That's the whole point. Popular speech that goes along with the establishment's narrative. And exactly what you're talking about, how Rachel Maddow even reported this Flint, Michigan story. She's manufacturing consent. That's what Chomsky taught us years ago, is that they're there not to give you the news, but to manufacture consent. And that's exactly what they're doing. They manufactured consent around Russiagate. They manufactured consent about why we got Trump instead of the real reason. They're manufacturing consent around censorship right now. So it's, and of course, if you do good journalism, they will come for you, Jordan, which is why they are deranking you and throttling you and other people like that. Hey,
Can I just real quickly?
Sure.
Can you imagine if coronavirus started in the United States and investigators found that Donald Trump, his chief of staff and health director, were on the phone like a bunch of drunken teenagers during this time period where it started, trying to stop it from coming out, that there was a briefing sent to him about this deadly airborne disease, and he didn't go public with it for a year and a half later?
Yep.
They'd be calling for the death penalty.
Yeah, I know.
When I break that about Rick Snyder, when Jen and I break that, pin drops. So the Trump derangement has literally hijacked, it is essentially hijacked critical thought, and it is essentially made the very people that were cheering Julian Assange when he was exposing Bush's crimes go against him.
That's right.
Based on a nonsense Russia conspiracy that's never even been proven.
That's right.
And Assange, there's no link to Assange and Russia. So I just, it's so dangerous. And, I really fear, not just for status quo and our journalism, but I just fear for the American people, because this is some 1984 dystopian stuff coming home.
I agree. Now I have to bust your balls on this.
Go ahead.
Now this was, you tweeted this out on January 6th. So it was the day of the siege, right?
Yep.
So I could cut you slack for this one, but here's what you tweeted out. You know what I'm going to read, right? Every media,
I know.
Every media outlet that pushed this insane election fraud conspiracy for clicks should be taken off the air. They've incited a civil war. Now, people are busting your balls for that because you then just got censored. So how do you square that circle?
Well, in the very next live stream, I said, I do not think Twitter, Facebook, Twitch, Amazon, and the rest are the arbiters to decide this.
Okay.
So I think people need, people could just watch. That's exactly what I said. People need to realize not all information is free speech. Not all things you put out there is free speech. If you are intentionally pushing cockamamie conspiracy theories, that's fine. If you are pushing cockamamie conspiracy theories and then basically suggesting people try to topple their government, that's not protected free speech. My thing was, you could take a tweet and say, oh, hypocrite. What I said the next day, or whenever I did the next live stream, was Jack Dorsey cannot be the one deciding this. Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube have already shown they're going to use this to basically rid the people their advertisers want them to rid.
That's right.
So, yeah, I don't think people or networks like Fox and OAN and the rest of them, if you are basically on air urging people, yes, go to D.C., stop the steal, which some of them were, yeah, that's not protected. However, like we talked about, you cannot have these Silicon Valley platforms being the judge, jury, and executioner, because we're seeing what's happening after that.
So it doesn't matter, Jordan, if you and I disagree whether that was protected or not. What matters is that we agree it's not for Jack Dorsey or Mark Zuckerberg to decide. That's what matters, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I think. Okay.
And I also think, bottom line, if you have a platform, okay, like Fox News, OAN, some high-profile YouTube channels, okay, you have a responsibility. You could say, well, it's whatever, a private platform, this and that. You might not be an actual journalist. You might be a commentator, this and that. But if you are literally urging people to go to the Capitol and take your country back, you might disagree. I think you have a platform and you know what you're doing. You know the fever pitch this country is at. I mean, Crystal Ball, who I really like her work, said the same thing. This country is at a fever pitch. This country is at a boiling point. So if you're using your platform to push that, I do think you should be held accountable. However, absolutely not do I think these Silicon Valley companies should be the one deciding, because it's already coming back on people that their whole message is peace.
Right.
Anti-war.
That's right.
So, that's what I believe. People don't have to agree, but that's what I believe.
What do you? We've covered this, but I just want to talk to you about it. But so what? Like, I'm worried. What worries me is, like, we had all those Black Lives Matters protests, and there were violence in those all the time. A lot of it started by the cops. With guns. Cops with guns. So what's to stop Twitter if I tweet out, hey, there's a rally, a Black Lives Matter rally, to say I'm starting violence, and they just take my channel down, or they take my Twitter? That's where we're at, right?
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the point. That is clearly different. Me saying, hey, I'm going to cover this BLM rally, or me being there and saying, yeah, there are people with guns, this and that, whatever. That's different than actually saying, hey, go to this BLM rally, make sure you're armed up. Things might get a little hot. That's different. But the problem is they are blanketing everybody
right
under the same brush.
Right.
And they are taking people like Jimmy Dore, or they will,
yes,
as inciting that. But are you supposed to not report on it? Are we supposed to not go to the Virginia Capitol today and show this? Because the very same thing happens, what I said in the beginning of this. What happens when they shut down our live stream and 5 minutes later, shots fire? I mean, and
that's
there's
right.
there's no documentation of it. So, I think it is very, very dangerous. That tweet I sent out, I was obviously heated. I do think that some networks are way more at fault than others. I mean, I've seen this OAN network literally, like, in the fucking protest with people, urging them to come. Let's stop this election. Rudy Giuliani, for example, was calling for a war and fight. Some are more at fault than others. But no, I mean, the fundamental thing is we could disagree or agree on what is inciting violence. What we all have to agree on, it cannot be Silicon Valley deciding it.
That's right. That's right. Because I will quibble with a lot of things that you just said, but not that. That's good. All right, Jordan Sheridan, doing great work on Flint. Congratulations on that. And, hopefully you come back when you break another story.
Thanks, Jimmy. Appreciate you spotlighting this.
Okay, no problem. Hey, everybody, this is the part where I tell you where all our live shows are, but there aren't any. And then this is why I tell you to join our premium program and get extra content, but nobody's got a fucking job. So just enjoy the video.